everyone. Welcome to No Mite Monday.
Evening, everybody.
You guys know Brad. That B-man at Faith Apiary.
I love that music, by the way. I love that piece of music. That is such a beautiful piece of music.
And that is free YouTube music. That's a free YouTube thing.
I realize I actually use that on some of my videos because I really like that piece. It's got the banjo and the guitar playing together like that, and then that haunting thing in the back. And I don't know what that is, but Bob, have you ever heard somebody play a saw? You take a hand saw and a bow, and you play a hand saw. Yeah, that's the kind of thing it sounds like. It's very haunting.
So we are both live at the same time. So we're trying to reach the masses of no-life beekeepers. Or at least beekeepers that have as little life as we do.
I was going to say something, but I'm not sure I'm going to touch that.
Yeah. Don't. Well, apparently, if you have RFD TV, that Coop Dreams is re-airing tomorrow at, I think, 6 a.m. Let me see if I got a message on it somewhere. And I'll see exactly what I was sent. I was sent a message that said, don't forget that show Coop Dreams airs again in the morning at 6 on RFD TV. So if you have that as one of your streaming services, you'll get to see somebody using my swarm lure, which is pretty cool, awesome, in my opinion.
That's really awesome.
Yeah, I think it's pretty inexpensive, so the channel, but I don't know that much about it, to be honest with you. But I thought it was cool. Pretty cool. So again, it's winter here. Been in the 40s, low 50s here for us. What's it been like for you, Brad?
Winter is arriving here. It's the 8th of January, so for winter to arrive on the 8th of January, that's pretty awesome. We've been having such nice weather here, and I mean nice weather for Canadian winter. But we're starting to get down to the minus 20s at night, and not breaking above the teens in the daytime.
Does that mean it's going to be June before it thaws out?
Well, June or July.
Get a week of honey flow in the middle of that.
Yeah.
And fill up all your boxes.
Somebody asked me one time, they said, what do you do in Manitoba in the summer? And we said, well, if it falls on a Sunday, we go for a picnic.
All one day of it.
Yeah, that's how short summer is. So anyway, we got a bit of snow over the last few days. It's been snowing a bit, so we've got a few inches on the ground now.
Well, I thought, started getting our stuff in order for our passports to come up to Manitoba at the end of next month. And first thing the wife did was go on YouTube, right? And she says, holy crap, is it cold up there? Yeah. I think she was second thinking. And then it was like, well, isn't that a long drive? I said, yep, which is why we're flying.
Yeah, it's a long drive for
sure. So it's gonna be fun.
No kidding, buddy. It is regularly in the winter. It is regularly colder here than Mars.
Well, I think that's why alcohol's so prevalent in Canada, is because it keeps your blood thin enough where it won't freeze.
Gotta keep us warm and thawed out. Need some antifreeze in the blood.
But we obviously, you and I and Todd chat all day long over Messenger and stuff. So, I'm a little concerned, and I've contacted you guys. I've contacted Bob Binney. I've contacted this farm. So if a couple years ago, people that have been in the chat probably know, I had a second apiary in a chestnut grove. And no matter what I did, I couldn't get those bees to take off. Requeening, adding brood, trying to let them make a queen, you know, just everything I could, throwing resources at this chestnut grove, and it just wasn't working. And it was literally a half a mile from a you pick it strawberry farm. Well, here where I'm at the house, it was too far for my bees to really fly down there. So it never affected me before. However, 1.2 miles down the road, there was a golf course that this strawberry farm purchased, an old out-of-date golf course. And they purchased it, and they laid out a nice 183 acres of strawberry plants. Well, all of a sudden, I'm starting to lose bees, right? And so I was kind of on the, hey, what the heck's going on train, right? They've got food. It was a double deep 2 weeks ago, and now nothing, right? So
if you solve that riddle, you might know what's wrong with Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, right. So
because it could be the same thing.
I mean, it's so I called up Sam, and I said, Sam, are you losing any colonies? He said, no, not everything looks good. So I went on Google Earth and I did the little measuring deal from my property to theirs. It's 1.2 miles to my property as the crow flies, and it's 4.2 from his property there. So they're too far. His bees are too far away. So I don't know if it's the fungicides or what they're spraying over there that could be impacting my bees, but I know they did plant, because I drove over there, they did plant 183 acres of strawberry plants out there. So I'm sure they treated them pretty immediate with something, right? And I know that because on Facebook, it was shared with me because it was going to be good for my bees. And my comment to them, yeah, it'll be great as long as they're not spraying fungicides and pesticides. Yeah. And now all of a sudden I'm starting to lose a few colonies. So, and it's not, I understand if I lose a weak colony, right? But when you go in a colony and it's got 30 to 40 pounds of honey in the box still and no bees, and it's cool, doesn't make much good sense to me. So we're just going to play it out and see what we got to do. And I emailed them and I didn't get a response from them. Brad had mentioned that he thought Bob Binney had said something about strawberries and honeybees at one time. And so I emailed Bob Binney. Bob got back like that. Like within 30 minutes, the email was answered. And
that's awesome.
You know, so.
I mean, Bob's got to be tired after a weekend he's had.
Oh, yeah. So I just sent him an email. I didn't know if he would get back or not. But, you know, we are both Bobs, so we have that in common.
The Bobs.
I have a meeting with the Bobs in the morning. So it's something I'm keeping an eye on. Really, is there anything I could do about it? Probably not, you know. I'm pretty sure that their farm is not going to share the information if it's killing my bees, right? So,
well, no, it's not that, buddy, because, you know, what do you do about that?
Yeah, I'd have to move my whole apiary somewhere, right? They planted them. They're not blooming yet. But if you, my thought is, there was a thing on Facebook where it was, I don't know, I want to say it was 3 weeks ago that they've sprayed, or I don't know that they sprayed. It was 2 or 3 weeks ago that they planted them. So I don't know how soon after they plant them that they would apply something to them. I would think it would be pretty close after they planted them that they would spray it with something to try to keep the pests away. But I don't know. I'm not a strawberry farmer, so.
And I'm no expert either, but I figure, if there's no blossoms too, your bees, like, why would your bees go there if there's no blossoms?
Maybe just looking for something,
Well, scouts go everywhere, so definitely them, but they make up just a few bees, not the whole colony.
Yeah, so I did go over there, but I couldn't get out and go to the plants because they had electric fencing around everything to keep people like me from going in to see if there's with the plants, right? So
What, little electric fence keeps you out? Come on.
Yeah, I mean, I could have just grabbed the things and put them down, but they were in the back on the tractor, so I can't stop the bullets from flying down here.
Yeah.
Where was it? I saw. Oh, well, by law, when I asked them when I was when I had the Chestnut Grove apiary, that they said by law they're supposed to spray at night. But what does that mean, right? Does that mean they're going out there just before sunrise and spraying, and then the bees come on at sun up? I don't know. But I mean, I can't say it's that. I don't know for sure, but it's just kind of convenient that all my bees that were at the other apiary half-mile from their other yard, and now I'm at this yard, or they moved down here 1.25 miles from me, and now I'm getting similar results, so don't know.
Hey, Darren, how's my audio now? There is a control. I can turn that up, so thanks for letting me know. Is it a little better now? Let me know.
But yeah, so that's just a day in the life of Bob over there. At least this Bob.
Yeah,
not the
Bob. Worked out.
The Bob
I sure hope it's not that. Not knowing is better than having an issue like that. Because what are you going to do? Even if you can pin the farmer down and say, "Hey, you're killing my bees," like, so what? Farmer just give you the finger, right?
Right. I got 183 acres over here that I'm tending to. You got a yard.
Yeah. You're a hobby beekeeper. Like, why do I care about you?
Right.
I'm not saying that's right. I'm just saying that's kind of the way it works.
So we're gonna.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
We're just gonna keep an eye on it. I mean, again, there's not much I can do. I mean, move my bees, move the whole apiary somewhere else, which requires
down to Sam's.
Yeah, move them all down to Sam's. All right, Sam, you no longer have this property. We're just putting my bees out here. Oh, he would let me though. I'm sure he would. But I do have another spot that wants bees, but I haven't really nailed them down on how many bees they would allow me to have out there. But it looks like they will be getting some. And they are a nursery for plants and stuff like that. So be interesting.
That's a good place to have them, I think.
Yeah, and they've got extra acres that they're not using, right? So you can just put them back there, and you can hear me fine.
Well, Bob has got one of those voices that you can hear across.
Yeah, if I didn't have a mic on, you could probably still hear me.
Yeah. I mean, if I had to project, I would, but I kind of hold back.
This mic that I have, Brad, they had it on clearance at Walmart for $75.
No kidding. I
didn't need to buy one, so I didn't buy one. So when I was there, it was there. It may still be there, but right now it's it's hard to say. Both sound good. Okay, great. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. I'm gonna drop the linkage here. I might still have it saved. Probably still have it saved. And for our leaving the country, Richard Knoll, we need to I need to get him on here. We need to get him in No Life Beekeepers.
Yeah, it might be the middle of the night for him, though.
Yeah, and most of those flights to Europe, though, do go overnight, and you get there in the morning. Let's see. So we are, I don't know. It won't let me pin until it goes up in the chat a little bit, I think. There we go. Now I can do it. Maybe.
I've been having trouble with that. It's kind of weird.
It's not allowing me to pin either. And it's, oh, wait, that's weird.
Hey, Bob. Hey, Brad.
You know what I had to do the other day?
What's that?
Hey, you know what I had to do the other day, Bob? I had to actually paste it in the chat in StreamYard, and then it would allow me to pin it.
Okay, let's try that.
If I pasted it in the chat in YouTube, it wouldn't allow me to pin it. How you doing, Tom?
I'm doing real good. All rested up from the really busy 4 days.
Yeah.
All right, so
Hey, Morgan.
I got some glimpses, Tom, of what, like, in the chat of what's going on with you in this paper you have to write. Tell me about that.
Well, I can give a little details. I've been doing an experiment the last 2 years of making a mite brood break.
A mite brood break?
Yes. So when females only go into cells to reproduce. So if they can't reproduce, they don't go into cells.
So
then there are no mites underneath capped cells after 3 weeks, 21 days. Then you hit them with acylic acid vapor, and you get a close to 100% kill.
So what's the difference between a mite brood break and just a regular brood break?
Because you can do this anytime you want, and you don't have to stop. You don't have to stop the brood. The brood can keep on laying. So there is no brood break.
So did you say that you somehow have a way to keep the mites from going into the cells?
Correct. They only go into cells.
Phone Sam Ramsey.
And it's not even a chemical I use. It's an inert material.
Well, you've alluded to this before, and it's intriguing.
So
but
I talked to
unless you're willing to tell us what it is, then I think, you know.
Well, I got to talk to a few of the scientists this past few days, and they were quite intrigued. And I actually had a little meeting with 2 of them and Bob Beanie, because I heard it 2 years ago, and Bob Beanie's brought up one of his posts with a German scientist that he had on. So he mentioned something about mites, and then I said, "Oh, I think I know how to do that." So I'm writing a paper up for the University of Georgia, a little thesis paper for the groundworks for them to do some testing.
A hypothesis, if you will.
Hypothesis, yeah.
Okay.
So, and see where it goes after that.
So Ian's asking you what the substance is, Tom. So Ian's asking, so you have to tell.
I can't tell. Let's put it this way. Once you put it in, you don't have to take it out. You can take it out whenever you want.
There's so many things I can say right there. And I have
well, it's inert, so it's either nitrogen or argon or helium.
Or CO2.
Once you find out, you'll go, holy moly, that's so simple.
Well,
but if it's a gas that's going to leave on its own, he said you can take it out.
Yeah.
I can tell you it's not a gas.
That's my limited understanding of inert things. I'm not much of a scientist.
So I got it working pretty good last year. I got to change the amount that I put in, and then I'm going to do that once the weather turns and gets a little bit more data.
He's trying to air pressure you.
I can't see comments as I'm on my phone.
Well, you can see what I put on the screen, right?
Yeah.
Well, Ian's pissed.
He's going to blackball you from everything.
He's going to be at your door in the morning. Hey, Charlie.
Hey.
Hey, Charlie. Hey, Morgan.
Hello.
And there's Tom, half a Tom.
There's the other Tom.
Senior
Tom Tom.
Is he frozen? He might be frozen.
Yeah, I think he is.
But what's going on in your neck of the world, Morgan?
20 questions?
Well, I got a customer that's also a friend. On New Year's Eve, bought 2 half-pound jars of the creamed honey. She's already out.
That's what you want to hear, man.
Oh, well, the person I just sold honey right before the stream. They bought 4 jars of hot honey and a pint. And she said, or the guy said, my wife's sending this up to Maryland. And I was like, haha, I'm stealing Charlie's sales.
This ain't the moonshiners now.
The hot honey. I could say, well, I got some friends up in Maryland. They can just go get honey there. Just get Charlie the recipe for the hot honey.
You're sideways, Tom.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure it out.
There you go.
Sorry about the echo, guys. It won't go away.
So who was coming up here, Bob?
No, the guy that came and picked up honey was for his wife to send to Maryland to
Stealing your customers, Charlie. You going to put up with that?
I'm transshipping honey.
Can't have that.
Transshipping honey to Maryland.
To Maryland.
Beef.
We just get the Chinese honey. See, that's where the Chinese are doing it wrong. They just need to get someone from the States to transship their honey instead of going out to like Indonesia somewhere and then shipping it back. Just ship it to somebody in the States and let them ship it to somebody
South Carolina.
Yep. Maximize that profit. But it's I always like it when people stop by, and it's funny how hard they will try to buy honey. Everyone's like, well, I don't know, selling it at my house. I was going to my mailbox today, and the guy pulled in the driveway. Man, I've been coming by, and I haven't been able to catch you. What's a good time? Well, during the week, usually after 5 o'clock, somebody's here, right after work.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, I got to go do something, but I'm coming back tonight. And then they ended up buying a bunch, $60, $55, $60 worth of honey. And I hear that a lot. We came by and honked the horn and knocked on the front, and that was loud. Whoever notification
really
that was.
Wow.
But
I timed out with your honk the horn saying, I was like, wow, he's got like a radio.
Yeah, I know, right on cue, right? Like stream deck.
Maybe that's the honey customer.
A lot of people, they'll just pull up. And if I'm sitting here, I hear it really well, as long as they don't have some little wimpy horn to go out and sell it to them. But it's pretty impressive that when they like your honey, they will come back and come back and come back until they get somebody. So it's pretty cool.
Your drive, your road there is pretty good where your frontage is for that.
Yeah, that's not bad. Not bad. Ed, what's going on in the world of Ed?
Yeah, just working on the bees, man, making sure they're all good. Looks like I may be splitting early again this year. On 2 of my hives, I've got the holly hive and my May hive. They're just crammed full of bees.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
As long as you get drones,
probably
made it.
Oh, both hives have drones and are laying drones. So it's looking good, but it's gonna be. I think I'm gonna beat up with bees this year with a bumper car. So maybe I'll be able to sell some nukes.
I don't know what I'm going to do as far as that this year. I think I'm going to focus more on just growing mine. You know, if I'll still get people that'll probably call me and ask me about nukes, but and I might sell them one, but I don't know about you know, doing much as far as that, because I keep telling myself I'm going to fill my equipment, but I haven't gotten there yet, where the equipment that I have, that I'm utilizing all of it, right? So we're going to try to focus on that a bit this year, and queens and getting it done.
Queens is the key.
Yeah, that's it. Try to raise good queens and get it going. Mark, you look tired.
Yep.
Were you out doing tree work today or something else?
I actually went and picked up some sweet potatoes for my pigs. There's a produce plant here, and they have coals, and we get them for the pigs.
Nice.
And the cows. Cows eat them too.
A lot of people
Very
come here
nutritious.
to get stale bread, right, from the bread store.
Yeah.
By the truckload, and problem is they got to unbag it all to give it to the hogs.
Yeah, that's a lot of work. I like to feed them good corn and supplement. They get the vitamins, minerals they need. It's a whole lot better meat. You feed them junk, the meat just not that good. The fat doesn't come out good.
Right.
Gotta have that fat and make that gravy when you have sausage.
There you go.
Fat equals flavor.
I'm full of flavor.
Oh yeah.
I was thinking exactly the same thing. I'm full of flavor.
Boy, I'm mighty delicious.
I'm delicious.
I did something similar to what you were talking about, making a hive broodless with a laying queen. And I made a video on it. It's on my YouTube. And but what we had to do was take that brood out. Once we trapped the mites in that brood had to come out to get rid of the mites.
Oh, you know what? Man, I would have had to do a shot. I just did a party foul. The whole name of the stream is No Mite Monday, and I stimulated the question about mites.
Well, that means tonight is about having no mites.
Having no mites. Well, yeah, you could do it either way, I guess.
No mites.
Morgan,
I got a question.
and that's my goal.
I want to start a controversy here. And I'm not talking about what Tom is doing, which that's very, very intriguing, but he's not sharing what he's doing. So, that conversation's over. But what I want to ask is, we hear a lot about people talking about brood breaks, right? We talk about brood breaks for mite control, and we know it's a very effective method for part of your mite control for sure. So we hear people a lot of times, they go in and they'll cage their queen or something, and then leave her caged for whatever time, couple of weeks, because we know that from capping till emergence is 12 days. So after a couple of weeks, all your brood is emerged. So then all of your mites are exposed to something like oxalic acid, right? That all makes sense. And also, even if you don't use oxalic acid, then you have brood break, and that can be a mite control even just by itself. Now, what's the difference, other than the 2-week waiting period? What's the difference between caging that queen up for 2 weeks and going into that hive and removing all the sealed brood and replacing it with drawn comb. What's the difference? Other than you're not waiting 2 weeks. Your queen keeps laying.
Oh, the different. So you're pulling all your brood, all your cat brood out.
That's right.
And what about your about to be cat brood, your uncat brood?
Well, I mean, you're pulling frames, so obviously you're going to be pulling, some of your unsealed brood too. But the
Yep.
kind of the gist of the idea is that you're not stopping the queen laying, whereas you're stopping the queen laying for those 2 weeks. Otherwise, so where's the flaw in the theory?
You're still losing
The only thing
thousands
I
of
see,
bees
Brad,
Yeah.
that it won't be emerging.
you are losing them, but the only thing is you're getting them soon. You're getting them back sooner than just caging the queen and for the 2 weeks and her not laying. You know, you're gonna have
You're
the
kind of
brood come back a lot later.
Yeah, you're kind of like if you cage the queen, you're eliminating the next 2 weeks of laying. If you remove the brood, you're eliminating the last 2 weeks of laying.
And the last
Right?
2 weeks of mites.
Right.
Whereas if you cage the queen,
I agree with you, Brad.
And the
waiting for
mites.
the mites to
That's a
finish
good point, Tom.
reinfesting the
You're
cell.
actually
Yeah.
removing the mites that are in the brood.
Right.
Yeah, but
So
the
so it
only
might
issue
be
is and I'm just thinking, the only issue is if you don't cage her and you just remove that brood, there's still mites on bees, and unless you pulled every single 8-day-old larva out of there too, the next day there's a mite in a cell. So I don't know where the
But with a simple
I'll
brood
tell you
break,
what I
the
did,
idea
Brad.
is that you could cage the queen, and when all the brood is emerged, then you let the queen go, and then because the mite enters the cell on about what day 7-ish, somewhere in there,
9.
that there's so little day 7 brood that the mites all converge onto a few cells, and they kind of starve and they can't reproduce. That's the theory of the brood break. So with removing the brood, you're kind of producing the same thing, right?
So my understanding, and this is just my understanding of it, is if you get a smaller patch of brood that the mites are condensing on, you actually increase the mites reproduction rate, right? Because when that
Really?
female goes in there and she lays a male egg, and then there's with one mite infesting a cell. This is just off memory, off reading. One mite infests a cell. She lays the male egg. She lays the female egg. Yada yada yada. And then what draws that reproduction back is actually the mating of those mites between the brothers and sisters. But then when you get two mites in there, they both lay a male egg, right off the bat, and they get a better reproductive rate. And then on top
So
of
now
that,
the mating is not as incestuous as a rule.
exactly, that's another thing, right? So it's just like if you take there's like that running joke, right? If you get two super inbred hillbillies, right, from two families and you breed them together, you'll get a genius, right? because you're taking two complete opposite gene pools, and with mites they are super inbred. So
well, that kind of makes sense, because there was actually the National Honey Show in Britain that they do. Boy, they got some good speakers in there, and this guy Ralph Brooker, I think his name is, and probably Rolf.
That's the guy I watched.
And I watched him a couple of years ago, and then I heard Randy Oliver reference him, and I thought, and that just put Rolf's stock way up for me to have someone reference him, not just Randy reference him, to have someone reference him, because I'd never heard of him before. And that's one of the things that he talked about. He talked about, mite control. You wanted good mite control. He said, go in there, take out all the sealed brood, and he said, you'd be surprised what little effect it has on the colony. I actually did that this summer, but it wasn't for brood mite control. But so yeah, that was just a conversation that I was interested to kind of have and get your ideas on.
Well,
He talked about 3 different ways to do that, Brad.
He did.
And
Yep.
I took one of those, and what I did was isolated the queen in the top box, like 9 frames of honey and 1 open frame that she could lay in. So she could only lay on that frame. And after 9 days, I moved that frame to the bottom and put in another empty frame and for another 9 days. And then I come back and put a third one in, moved the second one down, but I took the first one out of the colony because now all your brood that was in that colony is hatching out. So these frames that she's able to lay in are the only places the mites have to go to get in a cell. So these 3 frames become mite traps.
Okay, so
So
you can
after the
concentrate
cycles,
your
you'll take all
effectiveness
3
of
of those
removing
frames
those.
out, but you keep all your bees in there, and then you can also do oxalic at the same time.
Right.
So you clean up your phoretic and you catch the ones that are going in the cells. And I did a hive that had like a mite count of 50. And after I did that process, they were like 0 or 1.
Yeah. Yeah.
well, I
So
That was
mean,
a
it
very
worked really
interesting
well.
talk he gave, wasn't it?
Oh yeah.
You obviously saw the same talk I did. That was very interesting because he covered quite a few methods that
Yep.
people really aren't using, and Mike and brood
And it's all
removal
natural. I really
was one
liked
of
it.
them. Yeah. I really liked it.
well, if you're so if you're removing that, aren't you still creating a brood break in the fact that I know every time I put a frame in, the queen doesn't go right into laying those anyway because the bees have to clean it out and polish it and get it ready to go. Even if you're taking it from one hive to another hive, an empty comb, they clean it up before she would start laying in it anyway, right?
That's why I called it a brood break with a laying queen. Because your queen never stops laying, but you're actually doing a brood break because you're um, controlling where she can lay and then taking those frames out, but you know you don't lose as many bees, I guess. But
And
and you
so
can just put those frames in the freezer, kill the mites, and you can put them back in. I put them in another box, and then as that hatched out, I kept treating it
Yeah, that's the
and
best
cleaned
way,
those
Mark.
mites up as they were coming out. It actually made that a split.
Well,
I
here
like
in the
the idea
comments,
that
Hope says, I don't know, Bob, can you bring up Hope's comment there? Use the sealed brood frames for splits with virgin queens. By the time she starts laying, the brood will have emerged. Treat, and Bob's your uncle.
That's
So
what I
treat.
that's what I did. Oh,
So you've got that brood break, but you've taken that brood break into a different colony. Your
right.
split, your little mating nuke kind of thing. Boy, there's
I,
just
I made a
endless.
yeah,
video. I
just make
made a
sure you don't miss
video.
that treatment window.
Right. I
Right,
made a
right, right.
video of that process. It's on my YouTube. It's a video of the whole thing.
So I like that
Well, there's a
idea
lot of
of
techniques.
creating the brood break without caging the queen. And the reason I say that is because I've gone back and forth over the last few years regarding caging queens and banking queens and whatnot. And last year I started learning instrumental insemination, and it's amazing the banked queens for that, how much their footprint pheromone glands are chewed by the bees while they're in those cages, right? And so it's super complicated from what I've read, right? Because when you cage the queen, she'll lose weight, but she'll regain that weight once she starts out laying again within 14 days. And there's all these studies showing
Yeah.
that it doesn't hurt the queen's ability to lay, X amount of eggs, and it doesn't hurt their lifespan. But I haven't seen any studies, and this is just what I've been taught from the people that are teaching me instrumental insemination, right? Is I haven't seen any studies on the effect of banking and that footprint pheromone, right? And if like you cage your queen, is there a chance that you just increase that colony's likelihood of having of swarming, right? Because she's going to be leaving less footprint pheromone throughout that colony. So that just, yeah, you just got my gears spinning there with
Well,
the.
and that's all these things, and you know, just the simple fact that, well, let's go find the queen, and let's pick up the queen and let's put her in a cage or some other thing or whatever, and then let's go back in X number of days and let's let the queen out, and hopefully it don't kill her, and hopefully you know, and the footprint pheromone that you're talking about, whatnot. I'm thinking, let's go in the hive. We'll yank all the sealed brood, and then we've actually created pretty much the same environment as we would do, but we've done it in 5 minutes instead of 2 weeks, right? And one visit, I don't need to find the queen. I don't need to cage the queen. I don't need to stop the queen laying.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to do any of that. It's like take her last, you know, 10 days of laying out, because that's where the reproducing mites are going to be, and then fill it with drawn comb and slam the lid and stick an oxalic acid vaporizer in the entrance, you know, or something like that, right? And you have about a 5 to 6 day window for that, don't you?
And then, like that
If you have no
commenter
sealed
said,
brood.
take that brood and add a virgin, right, and go to town,
Yeah.
because you have another window. That was
You're going to have
good
10
idea.
days before she's going to even lay,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then another 6 to 8 days before you've got anything sealed. So you just got a huge brood break there.
What's everybody's thought on the green drone frames?
So
Yeah.
you know, I started because you know you have to produce drones for II, and so I actually started. You know, traditionally you take those frames and you remove them and freeze them, right?
Right.
But I want to keep those drones, and so I started this year a rhythm method. So basically, you take a drawn drone frame, right, slap it right dab in the middle of the brood nest, not on the outside, right in the very middle of the brood nest, right, and then come back and do an oxalic acid treatment like 26, 27 days later, right, after the queen has laid in there and all those drones have emerged with the mites with them. I did that on 3 colonies. 2 of them are doing great. One of them's not doing so great. So don't run and do that. But that's the only.
I have that talk saved, and what I'll do is link it, put a link to it in the No Life Beekeepers page.
Yeah. So if anybody, we got 100. Well, we had 100. We got 98 now watching. If you're not a member on Facebook, there is a No Life Beekeepers group there. It's No-Life, all slammed together, Beekeepers. It's a private group, but you know, come join us if you can.
I think you have to have an invite.
Do you? I don't know. Do you have to be invited?
You don't have to have an invite. You can just hit the join button.
Yeah.
I tried to look it
Anyway.
up and couldn't find it, and then so Bob sent me an invite and it popped right up.
Well, they so I know they've added some questions. I found out that Charlie is the father of No Life Beekeeping today.
According to some.
According to somebody, Charlie was the guy. So I didn't know that there were any questions added on it, but it
I
asked.
already talked mites so much on No Mite Monday there, Bob. I apologize.
Yeah, you're gonna have to fill the whole jar up over here.
Well, today is a Have No Mite Monday.
Have no mite
Have
Monday.
no Mite Monday. Anyway, all seriousness, I want to throw that out there because it just occurred to me that it was a few weeks ago a light bulb went on, and I thought, hey, and it kind of went back to what Rolf was talking about on his presentation. I kind of thought, you know, people are talking about caging the queen and doing all kinds of stuff to the queen and delaying her laying for a couple of weeks. And I kind of thought, well, why don't you just take the last 2 weeks of laying instead of the next 2 weeks of laying, and you can do it in one visit. You don't have to find the queen. You don't have to mess with her. Just and then a further light bulb came on, and I thought, hey, that's exactly what Rolf was talking about in his video. And I thought, well, I want to talk about this to see what you guys think, and I appreciate the conversation on it.
Yeah, there was somebody that was doing I can't remember who they were doing broodless splits, which is exactly kind of like the opposite of that. You know, you're talking about like,
yeah,
you know what I mean. You're leaving the broodless you know, the primary colony broodless versus making the split.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually did that with 2 colonies last summer, and I didn't do it for mite control at all. And I should have done some oxalic acid. I didn't do it. But it was in my program to cull as much comb as I could cull to fresh things up. And because, you know, some of you might know that I had an eczema problem last summer, and I just used a shotgun to fix that problem, like to just do whatever I could. I culled 700 frames out of my operation. And so one of the things I did was it was an experiment mostly, was I took 2 of these colonies and I basically shook packages. So I removed the boxes, I put a fresh box, I put 10 fresh frames of brand new, beautifully drawn honeycomb in the box. I shook all the bees and the queen in the box, closed the lid. I put a jar on them because they got nothing in there now. We gave them a patty. And this was in the spring. This was in May, I think, sometime. And, you know, that did stunt them, but they did okay.
Okay,
when was the best time to do it?
What do you mean okay, like they went through winter okay, or okay during that season?
Well, I don't know. Winter ain't over.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah.
Barely
They
starting.
went into the building. They were live when they went into the building. What's that, Bob?
Barely starting over there.
Yeah, we're just starting. So yeah, I don't know. I won't know until, you know, March, April. But they went into winter, and they did make some honey. They weren't my top performers, but you know, healthy bees are the most important thing. Bees that make lots of honey are the
hard
second
to
most
graft
important.
from dead queens, right?
It is hard to graft from dead queens, and it's
zombie bees.
Yeah, you need bees to make bees, so that's what you need. When is the best time to do it? I don't know. I don't know what the best time to do it would be.
For us down here, it's after the flow. It's a good time, July and August, somewhere in there, before you're going into the fall, you know, prep and everything.
What's the logic there of doing it after the flow? And why is that the best time?
You don't want to knock that hive back when you're trying to make a
Makes sense.
But why wouldn't you do it in the spring when you're making your splits? You're taking that fruit out of the colony anyway. There should be nectar flow and pollen happening, right? So it's less stress on the bees from that. Just would have to do your split and then hit them with OA or something.
Yeah, I would think the best
time other than right in the middle of the flow.
I would think the best time is right before the drones start showing up.
Yeah.
Well, I better go. I'm behind then already. Before we got drones.
I'll leave that talk in the on the page.
There's some beekeepers, and it's a little bit experimental still, but there's beekeepers around here starting to do late season splits where they'll take. I don't know if any of you watch Phil the Bee Man's channel, but I know he did some last summer. I don't think it's the first time he's done it, but I know he videoed it last summer where late August he just took a box of bees, no brood, fresh comb, a whole whack of bees. He stuffed a cage queen up the like, it was really funny because he just tipped the box up and he just shoved a cage queen in the bottom, put the box down, walk away.
Yeah. He was the one. He was the one I'm thinking of that did the brutalist splits then. Yeah, because I remember that. He was like, I'm always going to do this.
Success.
Yeah. He said he was always going to put the cage through the bottom of the frames. He was like, that works so well.
Suppository, he called it.
Brad, I do almost all my splits in late July, August.
You do?
Almost all of them.
Are they broodless?
A lot of them are. Or just one framer brood.
Yeah.
That's about it.
I do one framers in May for sure. I do a lot of one framers in May. They grow up really nice.
And then I overwinter them on double screen boards.
So that would be a really great time. You get that queen in there, you give her some time to emerge and start laying, and then so you maybe take, let's say, 10 to 12 days after you push that queen cage in there, and then you walk up and you just flood that thing with oxalic acid vapor, right?
Yep.
That would be just beautiful.
And it goes
Tritone
into
made a
winter
good
with
point.
no mites or very little.
It's the shift.
That's what I've been doing.
Lee.
And since you've added new comb to that, or at least comb that's maybe not been in service, you've added comb that doesn't have a virus load, because we know that the viruses do manifest themselves in the comb as well for quite some time. So
Right.
you've added comb that don't have viruses on there,
Right there.
and you're effectively killing pretty much all the
I don't know what
mites.
to tell you.
So that's nice.
Yeah,
That's
it's
a
a good way.
nice
That
theory.
way, next spring you don't have many mites to start with, if any.
So I wonder how that would
Be right
work
back, guys.
if you're going from the.
Gotta go, Morgan. See ya.
I think he's coming.
Oh, gonna come back.
I'll just mute him until he comes back. All right. So I wonder how that would work when you're going from 2 boxes back down to 1 box, right? And you're shaking the bees down to put that excluder on. If you just pull that brood and swap it out with some fresh comb and go ahead and just make your split right then, right? Only thing is you do have to give them time to populate those frames back up before you can pull it out, right? So there's some bees for the new split, and then just hitting them right then. Or Apivar. I don't know if Apivar would be too slow in that instance.
If you
I
have
don't
a
think
foul
Apivar is
brood, you can do that too. You take and pull all the brood, all the frames out, put in all new foundation, and just let them go back to building and clean the hive up like that.
Yeah. If they're like, you have to watch the flow though, right? If you're using foundation, because they need something to build that with. A frame or two of nice fresh drawn comb would be nice. Like if it's honeycomb, it shouldn't really have, regardless of where it came from, it shouldn't have a big virus load, I think, if it's nice fresh honeycomb.
Yeah.
Charlie's still at it. He says he's going to buy it, Larry. He says he's going to pull the trigger. He's got all the knowledge now he required to make the purchase. He just hasn't.
He's chosen the model.
He may have, because last night when we were speaking with Charlie, he said when he gets home, he was going to do it.
I'll phone Boris and I'm going to ask him.
I gotta
Charlie
call
ordered yet?
I haven't ordered it yet, but I want to talk to James a little bit about, what he did. He had some customization done. So, but I did talk to Mike Barry down at the expo, and basically the way I want to use it is exactly the way the B3 model is designed for. And Mike also said that he recommended the B3 versus he had the B2, I believe it is. Which the B3 has the hydraulic cylinder on it. So that's what I was going to get in. I was going to get that in the beginning. So after talking to Mike, it was definitely, what was all that?
Holy smokes.
Was
Hey,
that
y'all,
you, Ed?
I'm about to jump off here at 4:30. Gonna come early.
I'm thinking it was. I had to move give me a minute. I'll move my phone to another room.
They have silence. You can silence them.
Nick.
Night, y'all.
All right, night, Morgan.
Okay,
Morgan.
good night, Morgan. Thanks for
Night,
dropping
Morgan.
Oh, no problem. We'll talk to y'all later. Take care. Have a good rest of your evening.
in. Take care.
Bye.
But after talking to him, I'm pretty much confident it's going to do what I want it to do.
So I've got a question for you. What is it that you heard from Mike Barry that you didn't hear from Brad or James or who else that you
Well,
talked to
I
about?
watched some of Mike's videos, and I was asking him. I said, I said I seen you trying to push down on the back handle, and I mean, it looked like to me that I'm looking at the balancing factor of the weight on the front and versus you pushing down, and he said a lot of that was because the boxes were stuck, and he had to break them loose, and then once that, and he said also, it'll lift up 4 honey supers without any problem, and all that. So I was just kind of concerned. I watched a couple of them where they're putting their foot on it. I'm like, well, why are you doing that? This thing here is you're supposed to be able to hit the buttons and lift it up. It's supposed to do the job. So, and he said once it kind of gets up at the tipping point or the balancing point, it stays there. It's no problem.
So it's more about getting the propolis to break loose first.
Hey, honey.
Yeah, I mean, you go in, you grab the box with the lifter part of it, and you kind of put some pressure on it with the hydraulic system, and then you go up there and pop the box. And then the main thing with what Mike said like it's designed to put in a what do you call it, a skateboard, or I said I want to be able to under super. Well, he said, well, that's like putting a skateboard or putting the you're always either under supering and you're kind of lifting the boxes off the top so you can get down in there in the brood area to work. And that's my main goal, where I don't have to lift 4 boxes and they're 50, 60 pounds a piece. This way I can go in, like a scenario would be, let's say I have, let's say I've got three honeys, or let's say 2 honeys, let's say 300. I know the first honey super is probably still empty. Just put it on a couple of days ago, but I can lift those other 2 off and look in there. Let's say it's been a week. I want to check the bottom one. Yes, it's full. Then set everything back down, lift all 3 of them up, slide another empty honey super in, and all that.
So a little thing that I learned, Charlie, and I've had my lift for a while, but I don't know why it took so long for the light bulb to go on for me. But and I will also qualify that people malign these things to no end, but I've never had a real big problem with them. But metal queen excluders versus plastic queen excluders, I have a mix of both, right? Well, I'm getting rid of those plastic ones, because when I go to lift that box to put that escape on, that metal queen excluder is so much easier to deal with, and it comes off of that box so much easier than the plastic ones, that it's definitely worth the extra. And I'll tell you, those metal ones are 3 times the money as the plastic ones. So that's what I'm changing this year.
Randy's going to order it for me tonight on the chat. Hopefully he'll pay for it. And as far as Russell Koopman goes, I'm not cheap at all. I don't have a problem. I got the money. My bees make money. It's just making sure that I got the right product for what I want to buy.
Absolutely. When I bought it, there was 1 model. So that's the model I got. Right. I had no choice. That was it. But it's worked well for me. I really
as far as queen excluders, I have a lot of my queen excluders are wooden bound, and they are metal. I never did like plastic. And at the time, I liked the idea of the wooden bound, and they weren't too expensive. Now they are expensive. I'd buy the straight steel screens.
I just use the metal bound. They're
if I was buying any more to be all metal, I would not buy the wooden bound. They're too much money.
They're $15 for me now, which is just really going to hurt. But I have to buy 50 of them or something in the spring. So
it's $15 for just metal bound.
For me, I think they're about 15 for the heavy duty metal bound. There's
I'm looking on the. I'm really liking this No Life Beekeeper Chat. Somebody already has one of these. I don't know. I guess it's the American made model of the hive lifter. It goes kind of like Joey's, but.
Hey, you guys are talking about plastic excluders. So a tip for a guy that has to use them right now because of cost: run your hive tool under all of the whole, as much around the hole underneath you can, because anybody in here who bottles or who labels their bottles knows when you pull that label off of that sticky piece of paper, that label is going to curl up. So the same thing with the excluder. When you rip that thing up, you get a little hold under it and you tear it up, you're basically doing the same thing. It's going to start, getting a curl to it. So if you run a hive tool around the underneath of that, it helps. It won't
There's
stop
something
it.
about that dynamic, when I lift those supers with my lifter and I got to take the queen, that queen excluder will stick to the honey supers every single time instead of the brood chamber. I want it to stick to the brood chamber, and I've been racking my brains to come up with some kind of a solution to say, what can I put in there that'll make that thing stick to the brood chamber and not short of putting a screw through the thing when I put it on.
I have to laugh,
I guess
Brad.
I could.
Yep. Sorry I'm late, guys. I got a text from a guy at the University of Georgia, so I ran out to my bees and pumped the boxes full of helium, so that's why I'm a little late.
Did they fly away?
Thank God.
I saw Mike Trevis got a new hive lifter. I think he got the same one Joey got. Got the American flag.
That's the American. That's the American model. That's not from Boris.
Alpha tape, sure.
That's the one like the guy out in Alabama or someplace.
Who, Joseph? Joey?
Yeah.
He's in Louisiana.
No, it's a guy. It's not. He doesn't come out on the chats.
Vaseline.
He's either. He's in Alabama, I think.
Let's see. I haven't see people asking about the Hilco equipment. I don't have any experience with it personally myself, so I went with license. So
They're Bob Moore's Homestead. He's got a question there.
Yeah, I was reading
Bring that up about brood in the.
What are the disadvantages of having brood been previously laid in your honeycomb? Well, it makes harvesting honey 10 times harder, for one.
Yeah, if it's in there when the honey is in there, for sure.
And during storage.
You're trying to pull honey. Where's your queen? Figure out where the queen is. And your queen's in danger. When you have a queen excluder and you're quite certain the queen is at the bottom, you start working on the queen excluder, you've got a different situation. You're not going to have a queen in the upper boxes. So, I mean, I was saying you can slam things around more, but I'm just saying you're not potentially endangering the queen up there.
Yeah, somebody was mentioning storage, I heard.
I don't like having brood comb up in my supers because then I can't store them outside. Because then the small hive beetles and the wax moths will get in it.
Yep.
And then your comb gets dark looking. And with that cocoon in there, it's harder to cut with your plane.
Yeah, and your wrist is going to be killing you if you got a knife.
You got a
knife? My capper doesn't care. My Cowan doesn't care.
I got a Max and uncap and planer, but
that's what I have.
Yeah, but if you have a knife and you're cutting that brood comb,
yeah, it's a little tough.
My uncapper's got knives.
Steam heated.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen it.
I overkill on my equipment. It's much more than I need right now, so it makes the job quick. Cleanup takes longer than uncapping typically.
I've been watching some people's videos from the conference, and have any of you guys seen that comb honey they had with the? I think it's simply comb
Simple
or
comb.
simply bees. Yeah,
Simple
that
comb.
You
those
mean the
little.
plastic trays that make the comb?
Yeah, what'd you think about those?
Well, I know
Sound like it
Dirt
was
Rooster had
$80 a box.
I've seen it there. I've looked at them. I don't have the experience with combed honey, but
Oh, you also have to wax all of it.
Yeah.
You have to paint wax in all of them. So,
all right.
Is it a synthetically drawn comb? Is that what this is?
No, it's a cut comb honey tray that you put in your frame, and then you just pop it out and close it, and it's done.
Oh yeah, I used some of those years ago. They call it BioPack, and you know it actually worked pretty good. I did have to wax it. I had to just paint a little bit of wax on the bottom, and it worked pretty darn good.
Bring up Morris's
half
reply
comb,
there,
though.
Bob.
It's a half comb, so when I make comb honey,
you get 8 in each frame.
Both sides of the comb with the midrib in the middle, whereas the pack is the midrib, and then you get half the comb.
Right.
Yeah, we're good.
Let me answer this. What you need to do is you keep your queen excluder on, but bring up some open cell brood into your honey supers. If you only have foundation, that's going to be a bait frame, and they will the smell of that will draw up the nurse bees through the queen excluder along with the rest of the bees, and that's how you'll get them to draw your comb out and everything.
Works good for making splits as well.
Morris Homestead, I had exactly the same problem my first year. I got frustrated with the queen excluders because I didn't have drawn comb, and I ended up taking them out, and then I had to deal with all the brood in the honey supers. And so then the second year I learned how to use them exactly the way Charlie just said.
Right.
Just use bait frames. Just pull a bait frame up and Bob's your uncle, as they say.
And it works great for splits too. So you can shake all the bees off of those brood frames and put that excluder down there, put your new box on top, and put those new frames on top, and a little while later you come back and all the nurse bees come up onto those frames. You can just pull them right out. You know the queen's down on the bottom. You're not worried about grabbing her. Unless you're Bob, it doesn't matter if I got a titanium queen excluder. She'll get through. Still finds her way up there sometimes.
And you know what's another nicety about that method, Bob? Is you take that split, and guess what's in there? What did you just say? You got some brood, and what do you got? You got bees in there? What kind of bees do you have in there?
Nurse bees.
You got nurse bees. Well, guess what nurse bees don't know how to do?
Fly.
They don't know how to go outside, right? So guess what you have now? Now you got a little split that you just made above this hive, and you think about this 2 feet or 2 miles, don't apply because these bees have never been outside. You take that little split, you put that thing anywhere you want, and they're going to stay in that box because they're nurse bees. And that's the real nice thing about that method.
Who's playing the slot machine?
Yeah, I know what that noise
That's
is.
all I can hear.
That's not me.
If someone wants to play a video game, do it on mute or leave. One of the two.
Some of Bob's stuff. He must be truck drivers.
Not me.
There's a video from Jake Moore on splits. He just rang my bell on this. His last name's Moore 20. Sorry. The way he had it, I haven't tried it. It's pretty interesting. The way he does his splits, is he evens out all his brood and then he stacks all his boxes. He doesn't find a single queen, not one queen, right? Just stacks all his boxes 10 high, right? And then lets the bees kill all the queens, then pulls all the boxes off and just adds new queens. Look it up. It's interesting. It's
like a lot of work to me.
It sounds like no work, right? You just even out your brood in your boxes. Huh?
You got to stack them. I mean,
oh yeah, that is work. That is work. Yeah,
you got a fancy lifter like Charlie.
And then you got to unstack them.
Yeah.
But I mean, as far as time's concerned, right? If you just look up the video and watch it, you'll be like, oh, that's interesting.
If you can't bring yourself to pinch a queen, that sounds like a great
Yeah.
method. Just
Yeah,
let them fight it out.
I mark my virgin queens, so I never have a problem finding queens.
Yeah, he's talking about in thousands of hives, thousands of colonies.
Yeah, when you running that much, you have to find them.
So he's basically stacking all the brood up and letting the bees equalize themselves on the frames.
He's equalizing the brood in the boxes, which equalizes the bees in the boxes afterwards, and then also the distress of it all makes the queens all, the bees get rid of all the queens, and then he just goes in afterwards and adds a queen to every single box.
See, that's the kind of method you can use if you've got a crew and the crew just need a job. They say, okay, do this, and you can just train them to do a job, and that's the kind of method that's great for that.
I see Brian from Flower Street just came in. I wanted to say I enjoyed those videos made with Mark Miller.
Grab a drink, guys. I'll be right back.
So that was Brian. Oh, never mind. I was thinking something else.
Yeah, Brian Coper just got in here too.
Yeah, that's who I put. I saw both that at the same time. So
yeah,
mixed up.
So Bob walks out of the room and everybody goes quiet.
Yeah, talking about that there combed honey. What do you call it? What would you call it? The way of doing it. If you got to wax the darn plastic, I don't see the too much. I mean, they want too much money for what you're getting.
Yeah, I wouldn't put that link in there. $80 for a stack of what they call a single pack.
Yeah,
I put the link in the chat.
Super.
But you get 80 packs out, so they're saying you got $1, in your cost. So
that's a lot.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Somebody was screwing up. The management came in. The CEO showed up at the employee meeting. We're all screwed.
I'm trying out my phone here. I'm not down in my office.
Oh,
Can you
yeah.
hear me? I'm coming through.
Good.
Yeah, good.
Good.
Hey, Ian.
How's everyone?
Ian, have you tried helium yet?
Have I tried? What?
No context at all. Just have you tried helium?
He said it's not a gas.
Not a gas.
Light control.
Not a gas.
I thought it was an inert gas. You said, Tom.
I said it's not. It's an inert material.
Oh,
I brought up gas because the only thing I know about science is inert gas, the noble gases they call them.
Yeah.
All Brad knows is about having gas.
I know about having gas, but Ian can attest.
That's inert gas.
Yeah, I put that link to that video in the chat here. If any of you are in
private chat.
Yeah, I don't know how to put it in the regular chat.
Yeah, you probably
I'll copy
can't.
the link there and paste it.
That'd be an interesting thing to watch.
It was one of those things I was like, that's kind of ingenious, It might just be common practice, and it was just new to me, but.
Well, all I can say, when I talked to Dr. Dave Peck the other day, I really piqued his interest because he knew what I was talking about, what I was doing. He just didn't know the details of it.
Good. Enough said, though, if you're not going to tell us what it is.
Yeah.
I can't.
Shut up, Tom.
I will this summer. I should be able to.
Okay, we'll get back to us.
Well, tell us first then.
Well, Tom, is it something that's chemical, or is it something?
No, it's not a chemical.
It's something that's mechanical.
Everything is chemical.
Applied, or
no? I changed the environment inside the box. That won't hurt the bees, but it hurts the mites.
Does it have to do with temperature?
Nope.
Not temperature.
Or it's got to be CO2.
Ian's going to be coming on every stream.
Say no to CO2.
Yeah.
He's going to be laying in bed.
Say no to CO2.
James was with that last year. That's how James came out of the barn so clean.
If it's not chemical and it's not mechanical, I think he's just going in there and he's using the wrong pronouns on the mites, and they're just like, "Oh, we're out of here."
They're all in a fetal position in the corner. He didn't say no to CO2, so I think we've.
No, it's not. It's not
It's
CO2
not a
either.
gas, though.
Oh, come on! It's
Not
got to
a
be
gas.
CO2.
It's not a gas.
It's not a gas.
Son of a beehive.
It's dry ice. That's not a gas.
I could say, but I'm not.
Fire.
We should work on Charlie now.
Fire.
We'll
Okay,
crack Charlie.
Someone bribe him with a hive lifter. Have a
I'll
hive
go talk to
lifter
Boris
on
and I'll
his
say
floor.
no hive lifter for Charlie until he tells me what's in that hive.
Well,
So Charlie, is it mechanical? Is it
No,
is it chemical?
I'm not really sure how to explain it. He was explaining it to me, and I wasn't quite comprehending it. But
Oh, dang.
Tom, why are you letting the cat out of the bag to everybody? You better ixnay.
Hey, I kept it quiet for 2 years so far.
Well,
Oh, you've mentioned this before. I know.
Yeah, I
young
did
fella.
pre-mention it. Premature, yeah. When I was just in the process of doing some tests.
You know, the problem
Next
with
month
you can't
before
be mentioning it and then keeping it secret because you're not going to be able to patent it anyways. Because you when you mention it, you create prior art. So it's
The funny thing about it, I don't even know if I can patent it.
is it water?
You can patent a process.
Is it water?
Water.
he's got to write a paper.
Bees will
Scuba
drown.
diving bees.
Little Don
If
Ultra.
it was water, then Ian would have had no mites in
Oh, yeah.
2022.
Yeah, it works. It kills the bees too, though.
Unwelcome side effect for killing the bees as well. That's now this is supposed to be No Mite Monday, and we've pretty much exclusively talked about mites all show.
There, Morris has got another question there about Apis biologic when he should feed it. I think
I like the rocket fuel.
Start feeding it when you can.
I feed it in the fall, so they have it throughout the winter.
Ian's
No,
an expert
I'm
on that.
I do it right in the spring.
Or you can do it in the spring. I
Yeah.
talked to Ashby, and he's going to start. He didn't know a lot about it, and I convinced him enough. He's doing nukes and whatever. I said, feed it in the spring. He feeds like a couple months in advance. I think, well, you do also, Ian. You knew more about it in the spring than I do, but I told him it would build his nukes up, and he won't have to worry about finding any brood. There'll be plenty of brood when they makes up the splits and stuff for his nuke sales.
Yeah, so the whole intent is to try to bring nutrients to the colony, which they wouldn't otherwise have. And so if pollen's flowing, I could tell guys if they're in a good area with pollen, save your money because you have the nutrients you need. But I was just talking to a beekeeper last night, actually. He was buying some wax and or the night before, I mean, and he was talking about a drought we had back in 2013, and then we had one back in 2021. And he was saying, like, that's the perfect time to use supplements is when you know that the pollen coming in isn't nutritious, so you got to fill in those blanks, right? So that's the only purpose. That's the way I use it. I use it in a way to try to fill in the spaces. So in the spring, I don't have any pollen here right off the start, so I'm feeding that to try to help provide the nutrition. As soon as the pollen's coming, then save your money, right? And then later on in the season, maybe we get some weather come in. I'll feed it at that time too. And then in the fall, right after the canola's done and they're starting to brood up for winter, I'll feed it, and then I'll stop so they clean up before they go into the shed. So that's how I feed it. It's expensive. Well, it's not really expensive, but it's cost. So you don't want to feed it if you don't have to. That's my approach.
Yeah, I mean, like for me, for patties, I find I don't know, the pollen, like you say, the pollen starts to come in pretty early. And as soon as that natural stuff comes in, they're not going to eat any kind of patties. And I did feed some of my nukes late summer when the pollen kind of diminished, and they seem to eat it right up and all that. But
yeah, they just love the stuff. Even when the dandelion's blooming, maybe it's missing a few there. The bees keep consuming it. So actually, I'll keep feeding it just because the damn stuff works so well, and I just like to build brood. But
I feed it in the fall and fill them up with that Apis. And to me, my analogy is the fact that it takes your sugar water and turns it into nectar. It gives it all the same properties of nectar. And my term of that is that your bees will survive off of sugar water, but when you put Apis in it, it turns into nectar, and they thrive off of it.
Yeah, stimulative. Yeah.
I mean, they really just.
Yeah. I'm planning on using it this about 3 weeks before the first pollen shows up, just to give them a little head start.
Yeah, that's how I use it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I was going to just jump in with the comment about cost came in, and I think it's one of the best values ever, because there's a lot of science behind it, and I mix up 1,000-liter tote of syrup, and that costs me $1,200, and I'm buying sugar. That's less money than it costs Ian to buy syrup.
And it's so cheap, you can just let it run out onto the ground.
And I just pump it out on the ground. If you watch my videos, you'll know. It just goes everywhere. Oh man, you had to open that wound again, didn't you, Charlie?
Yeah, cost is one thing. The purpose.
We love you, Brad.
Yeah, we're trying to focus on purpose.
For $1,200 in that tank, and for $75, I've got Apis Biologics in it. So I'm not really thinking about, and Ian's right. Purpose is different. You do need a purpose for this stuff. It's kind of pointless to do, because $75 is $75, and I'm not feeding one toad in the fall. I'm feeding 3. So there's more than $75. I can't do the math, but it's $225. So all I'm saying is, for the value of this stuff, you go and look at any other supplement. This stuff is almost free. It's crazy how cheap.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, because you start doing the math to map like Hive Alive liquid, and for the same price that you're doing 1,000 liters, you would have to buy a ton more Hive Alive to do it.
You'd have to buy $800 worth.
$800 worth. Yeah.
I just put Pro Health in one of these tanks, and I put it in to preserve the syrup. That cost me $150 for that gallon of Pro Health. Right? Yeah. That stuff isn't going to do anything like Apis Biologics is going to do, in my opinion. Nope. Because of it's kind of snake oil, and it's kind of like, yeah, hey, my bees look good. Apis Biologics has proven, it's got proven science in it, not just hey, my bees have a shiny.
It's proven just in looking at your hives. When your hives, like mine, came through this past winter into spring. And I had brood from the bottom board to the top, bees from the bottom board to the top. And then the bees were overflowing like a volcano out onto the ground when I'm trying to get into them. That's a huge difference. And
you know what Ian calls that? A Tuesday.
Yeah. A what?
Tuesday.
Just a Tuesday. It's like you just open it up.
Yeah. All right. I got a question for Christopher Roop. He's talking about his Super DFM.
Yep, strong microbials.
And it says overwintering small cons with a licensed 6-framer. It was a game changer in his apiary. All right. What did Super DFM actually do to you besides they look good? That's my question with that stuff.
You know what I'm kind of amazed at is there's a ton of people that don't know about Apis Biologics. And obviously way more with Hive Alive. They've done great marketing, but still, I'm still shocked that people have not used it, have not really heard about it. We talk about it all the time. I know not everybody watches this, but
I think it's time. I think it's because they were late in the game.
I mean, I take it to the bee conferences, and it's a chore to try to get people to come over and talk about it, or get them, I'll say, have you heard about this? No, nobody, like you say, nobody really knows about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's what, Bob? It's been out more than about a year, right?
It's been retail for over a year.
So
a couple of years.
I know DC said it's not been around that long, but a year is long enough. There
Well,
should be more people trying it, or less people saying.
I was the first distributor in the States, and it was October of 22 when I got it to sell here.
Well,
right.
I guess,
it was already out in Canada before then. I was just the first one in the States.
That's the point. I guess I'm just kind of amazed that Ian has been talking about it so long, and it came out.
Well, right there's your answer, Todd.
What's
that? Is that if you don't subscribe to Ian's channel,
you're missing out.
Or if you're not, I mean, let's face it, we're all YouTubers here. And look at look at Cayman and his conference. Who goes there? It's a YouTube creator, beekeeper convention. And that's why there's 3,000 people there, because they're YouTubers.
And he calls it rocket fuel, Charlie. So we got to educate everybody to what rocket fuel is. It's the same challenge.
There's a Friday night bee chat prior to mine that I go to. It's local. It's up in Westchester, PA. Ian was in that chat a couple of years ago. He didn't know me very well at the time, but I asked him about the hive lifter and why he used that versus the skid steer and all that.
He's still talking about it.
And
Aaron bought the goddamn thing.
Yeah, but what I'm getting at is I got in there and I talked about Apis Biologic in that chat one night. And I told him, the results and stuff like that. Oh, we all had results like that, because it was a good beekeeping year. They were downplaying it for fair. And I got a little bit irate with them. I said, you people you never used it. You don't know nothing about it. And don't sit here and tell me that it was because of the year. I said, I know better. I said, this stuff works beyond. And I said, you guys don't even get on YouTube, do you? No. I said, well, there you go.
Yeah. Well, so just, just let it be. Your bees are doing good, right? So.
Proof in the pudding.
I tried to talk to a guy about it.
I run all mediums. I run 3 mediums. The normal prior to Apis Biologic, I can tell you what's going to happen. The bottom box is completely empty of everything. There might be a handful of bees in there, and all the rest of the bees and brood is up in the 2 top mediums. And last year it caught me off guard. Like I said, it was brood in every box and bees in every box, and I'm talking about just jam-packed, overwhelming amount of bees. I'm like, holy smokes. I've never seen beehives like this before.
And Tuesday afternoon.
I started out years ago with Honeybee Healthy, and all those different things. And it's all, I won't say snake oil, but it doesn't give you, for the money that you put out, there's no results as far as population increase or honey increase or any of that kind of stuff.
So
this is the only stuff that I've ever had that works, and the rest of it, like a super DFM, I'm interested in that. I've been researching. I've been talking to people who had it, and I haven't heard anything that's positive that I really need to buy it or spend it.
Well,
unless you're a pollinator and you're going around the almonds, or you're going around apple orchards where they're spraying.
You got to put that.
That might be the product for you, because to get that DFM Plus that has the fungicide thing that gets rid of the pesticide.
E801.
Yeah, it's a binder in there and stuff like that. That would probably work if you're in that situation.
Well, I mean, you're kind of like me in that aspect, Charlie. We've talked about it before. When the only evidence someone can give me is my bees look good,
right?
That is speculative, right? We've done it. We've seen it. We've watched videos. People go out and, oh, my bees look great. And you're like, oh yeah, I see a bee, or, and for them, that might be what good looks like to them. Right. So it's hard to quantify what good is when you're just talking about the appearance of something. Right. And that's what we were talking about with the Apis, and, I don't even sell it anymore. So there you go. So there's nothing. I have no skin in the game. So I mean, I noticed the same things you did, right? Increased population, which was evident when you opened the box, and it's 2 weeks ago, and I've got slabs of brood in December, right? So it's different. It's different than anything else I've used. And why did I buy it? Because I trusted Ian's opinion, unlike you and the hive lifter after all those years.
Well, even I don't have a.
No, I mean that's what it comes down to for me. Is with Ian sold it to me and didn't know he was selling it to me, and it wasn't about the product in general. It was monetarily. When I looked at the cost, the input cost for Ian to use it on his colonies, I knew that anybody that's in business would not spend that money if they were not noticing a result, right? It wouldn't make good business sense. And so that was the first reason I ordered it before I started selling it. And then after using it, then it became apparent, right? So good job, Ian.
You want to see, just to change the subject, you want to see something? It's quite relaxing.
Sure.
Yeah, my nice fire going and sleeping dogs. The essence of winter, right?
You know what I really want to see one day?
That's the 2 dog days of winter right there.
2 dog days of winter.
I want to see the closet of stuff that people send you for free, like the overstock that you just get in the mail. Hey, try this out. You know, see what that looks like.
Yeah, it's a closet.
Another barn.
Do you have any bee gens?
All right, good night, guys.
Later, Ed.
Right. See you, Ed.
Night, Ed.
Yeah, I gotta go soon. My battery's going out my phone.
You know, they make power cords for those things.
Tell us the secret
I
before
know.
the battery goes dead.
Well, you're right. I got one right here.
I think it's getting close to your bedtime, you old bastard.
You're
I know,
being
but-
punished for not telling us.
He still has a knobby hangover. He still
You
has a
versus
knobby
punishing
hangover.
you, Bob.
Hey,
My
You
phone's dying. Oh.
you little kids in a candy store, you have to wait a little bit longer.
We can do it.
Oh, hell.
Yeah, that was Sparky there, 36. He wants to know whether Apis is better in syrup or versus patties.
They're different. They're different.
Different deal.
Yeah, I put it in the syrup right off. But the stuff in the patties, they're 2 different. Well, they're both a mix of nutrients and other things, but specific to what you would typically find in nectar coming in, and specifically what you would find in pollen coming in. That's the idea behind it.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, as far as
Proline's a big one in the syrup. It's almost an attractant in a way. You need Andrew to tell you about the science behind it. But the bees I just find the bees are able to take the syrup more readily, and when it's colder in the spring, I really find a difference that way.
Is the proline what they use to make the royal jelly?
It's part of it, and they use a lot of proline. It's one of the essentials, but it's not within the list of essentials. So I'm not sure if the pollen makers add proline or not, but
Sharon said, I thought Ian tested it on his beef for several years before mentioning Apis.
he did.
Oh yeah. Like Andrew and I have been working on this project. Since I've been doing my blog, he reached out to me because that's kind of my narrative. We're losing the diversity across the landscape. I have no pollen. We got to feed our bees. We got to make a better feed for our bees because I'm throwing these pollen patties in the bush all the time. The bees aren't consuming it. It's pissing me off. I put a lot of money into this protein supplement and they end up not eating it, and I just throw it in the bush. So we need to improve that. So he and I have been kind of working together and trying to find what the reason is they're not taking these patties down as they should, as you think they would. And so we just kind of try to balance out the supplement feed and such. And we went away from producing our own stock those patties are dynamite, just running at a time. And it almost was easier just to outsource, the bulk nutrients like Global Patty or Ultra Bee or something like that, and just then mix in the all the micros and the nutrients and all the other stuff he has in there. So
there was a lady at our last North Carolina conference, and she was from Texas A&M, and she was speaking on I think bee nutrition. And at the end of her talk, I caught up with her, and I told her about the apis. I asked her had she heard of it, and she said no. And I told her, about it, that it mimics natural pollen and natural nectar, and she said this is just what we need. So I gave her some of each. So hopefully she's going to run some of that in her testing back at Texas A&M.
Yeah,
Can't
the thing
remember
is,
her name.
when the bees are lacking nutrition, or I'll go on my soapbox again. It's all about the microbiome within the gut for the bee, and the bees need proper nutrition to feed that microbiome. So we need the gut properly set up for them to then metabolize the nutrients that are coming in. And if the gut's unhealthy, it's not going to process those foods into usable nutrients. So it's just about providing the nutrients that they need to be able to use, right? It's kind of interesting because over the last, you were mentioning about no sales and that, and there really is no focus on that. Like he's got a professional job. He and I just are kind of working together on this because he's obsessed about everything science. And he has some bees, and then he just kept getting emails and phone calls and give me the product. So then he put it in a bag, and then he just started selling, and it's just been very organic that way. He has no intention to advertise it, I don't think. It's just word of mouth, and he's just growing the business as it goes. So it's kind of interesting. His website, he should have had his website out for the expo, but I don't think he has. But he does a better job on explaining everything that he's put into there, and he's providing the recipe too, like the nutrients and everything is going to be on that website. He's not really interested in if people are going to rip it off or not. It's just more so he wants to contribute in a lot of ways, and then take the next step forward into something much along the same lines. He's still selling it for money. He is making money at it, but I mean, he only has so much time in a day.
I actually got an invite to go to brunch with Bob Binney and Dr. Lewis Bartlett. So nice. That's in April. So we'll.
Yes, Steve. Juliana was the one I talked to. Yep.
So I tentatively said I would go. Not that I'm special. I'm sure a lot of people got invited. So going to try to make that one for sure. So
I tend not to say that it would be. Or go ahead.
DC said, Ian, isn't that milk in a wine glass? Is it?
It's eggnog.
Vegan eggnog.
Yeah, a bit of Kraken.
It's premium grade.
But it's like, well, if the end said, you can put any kind of patty out there with this in it or anything, but as soon as the natural stuff comes in, the bees are just not going to take it. They're going to go for the natural stuff. So you have to get it out there earlier before the natural stuff starts to pop. That's what I found. But as far as the apis going into the sugar water, I mean, I do it in the fall, and I think that when they start brooding, they got that right there in the hive, ready to go. They got the right enzymes and all the good stuff that's in pollen or in nectar in that sugar water, and they just, they have no problem. They can thrive off of it, make all kinds of brood. And come springtime, when you need them to be at their best to go out to forage for nectar, they're there. They're ready to roll.
It's been quite a fun journey over the last 5 or so years. Because I remember when I first got into exploring bee nutrition and such, I'm sitting at the table and I had a cup of soy flour and I had a cup of sugar and some water and mixed it together, and it formed into this piece of cement, right? Just like, oh crap, this is no good. The bees aren't going to eat that. And I was like, how are we going to improve that? And we come from that to, or I come from that to collaborating with this guy on the other side of the country, talking about the micros and the essentials, and talking not only that, but talking philosophy at the same time, and how we think the bees, interact with the environment. And it's actually environment is its stomach, bringing it all back to be able to access all these nutrients that we are somehow unable to provide for them. Like what is that secret recipe? That the whole journey with this fellow up until right now has been one of the more interesting things of this entire beekeeping career of mine. It's just focusing in on this layer of nutrition. It's something that we're very super focused on in the rest of the farm, the grain farm and the cattle farm. Everything is right down to the science. And then I look at my bees and I'm like, what the hell? We have no idea what's going on. So he's brought that conversation into my realm, and I've just had so much fun doing it. I tend not to talk as much about it online anymore because I listen to myself and I sound like a feed salesman. I don't want to sound like that. So I've kind of pulled away from that a little bit. So, I mean, I'm not trying to sell this product. I'm just using it. And I don't want to wreck a good thing. It's a good thing's going. So
it's just hang on for the ride. People like us, Ian, that are trying to sell it need you to do that.
Well, if people want to use it, they can use it. It's up to them. Yeah. But all it does, I found, it just added that extra layer of those missing ingredients we feel that just helps the bees then utilize those nutrients. It's all about accessibility of the nutrients we're providing them, and it's not direct access. We feel it's more like there's a conversion right there, and we're not exactly sure how that is. So we're mixing all these things in to try to increase that conversion rate. Yeah, I'll just leave it there because I'm starting to sound like a feed salesman now. I'll just drink some more Kraken.
You don't have to. Yeah, I don't think you have to convince anybody here, at least on the screen, as far as how good it is. I mean, like I said earlier, it converts sugar water into nectar. That's my analogy of it, and whether it actually, it gives it all the same things as real nectar, and the bees just, thrive off of it. And I told Ashby Miller down there, I told him he knew about it, but he didn't know about it. And he says, I only listen to other beekeepers that have experience with it. And I said, listen, buy it and try it. I says, you're going to be really happy. You sell nukes like I do. You always want to give somebody 3 frames of brood. And I said, you're not going to have to hunt for the 3 frames of brood. It's going to be in that hive that you're in, that 5-frame nuke that you have started out with back in the fall. And so he said he's going to try for like three of his yards. And he was concerned about food consumption, being a big, strong super hive like that. And I said, in my hives, of course, I feed them in the fall. And I also, we have some other honey coming in the fall. I give all that to the bees. And my bees have plenty of food all the way up to springtime. And then by that time, the fresh nectar is coming in. So
that crazy son of a gun. I had trouble this spring with diseases of all kinds. Mm-hmm. And he was just, Ian, he sent me some stuff in the mail and said, try this stuff. So I had a test group going, and tried to, everything was random as I went through my little test yard, and I applied this product he gave me. And I actually talked a little bit about it after I seen the preliminary results of it. But he calls it so this product he provided to me is supposed to improve the health of the bee. It's supposed to enhance its natural immunity and a natural way of fighting off viral infection and stuff like that. And it was night and day. The product that I used, the colonies were 8 frames of bees, and I had a tough spring. They're just spectacular. And the colonies I didn't treat to it, I basically had to go into emergency measures and drop some brood frames in just to keep the colony going and requeen and everything. So, you know, I didn't talk any more about it because before I say anything about this, whatever you got going, I want to run in to see if I can duplicate it because it was, wow. It was as obvious as tipping these colonies back. I shouldn't actually be talking about it right now because I didn't really apply the science. I just applied the product, and I'm looking at the results of like, boy, I'm going to try this again on a bigger scale just to see if I can duplicate it, if there's anything there, right?
So would you say, Ian, that you had sick bees?
They're sick bees, yeah.
They were sick bees, and you applied this medication. I'll call it a medication or whatever
Well,
it is.
no,
Let's
it's
say
not
a
medicine.
treatment.
Yeah, medicine's different. This is very careful. This is not a medicine. Like it's nutrients. It's food, and it's
okay. Well,
this
whatever.
yeah.
I'll call it a treatment, a generalized treatment,
or a supplement. Yeah,
supplement, whatever, and it made your bees healthier, and all that. So that's the, you know, that's wonderful. I mean, you know, if he can get it.
It wasn't the product he sells though. This is something harebrained that he just put through, and it seemed to work. And this is the reason why I'm saying this is what we need in our industry. We need, and Cayman talks about this too. We need guys to, you know, express free thought like this and bring the innovation. Like, we're the ones that are going to bring the innovation to our industry, and we need to follow through with it, right? And we need to promote that. And nobody else is doing it for us. So we need to be able to, you know, follow through with some of these ideas. We have tech transfer programs up here right now is doing exactly that, is just taking these ideas that are, you know, within the academic world and bringing it down to the applied sense to the beekeeper. We need to support more of that stuff, right?
And it's a shame that, you know, so that little exchange there with the, you know, it's not medicine. Whoa. Don't say the M word, right? Because that's kind of the touchy thing with the innovation, right?
No, it goes beyond that. There's like, I figured this out a couple months ago. There's this defined line in the sand that you can bring something and it doesn't matter if it works or not. Someone's going to say, where's the science behind it? Where's
with regulators.
People will only try
medicine. The USDA will shut it down, right? You have to, you know.
Yeah.
It is important, though. I mean, you get a guy like me drinking Kraken right now, talking about something that works. We do need that science, though, to prove it, just to make sure that we're following the right path, right? Because science is science.
But, you know, back to the guy was talking about super DFM, where, you know, and like Bob says, the other folks just say, well, my bees look good. Well, that's, what do they call it? Anecdotal, I think it is.
Anecdotal.
Well, anecdotal. Okay.
Anecdotal.
I watched Frederick Dunn, and they had the lady on there that was a science person that was behind making super DFM. And as you listen to it, well, he asked, you know, where's the science behind it? Well, all it was field tested. That was it. There wasn't any, the way I understand it, wasn't any scientific experimentation. This is why it works or whatever, except for the fact that they were giving different types of bacteria or whatever, you know, to act with the bee gut and all that kind of stuff. So even with that product, it's not highly tested, I'll say.
Yeah, so it needs to be backed up by good science then.
Well, it was field tested, but that was it.
I know.
Here's the problem with good science. Good science costs millions of dollars and takes several years. That's
I took it to a bee club, and the president, he was all into case studies. He did a presentation, and he had a lot of case studies in his presentation, and I got up, you know, to share about the apis, and he wanted to know where the case studies were. It's like,
well, you know, Brad put a video up on his Facebook page about I think it was a noted ecologist out of Australia or New Zealand who said these kids go into university and the only thing that they will believe is you know, is it peer reviewed? Is it science? If it's not, right, they won't even listen to it. And unfortunately, that goes with everything in our world. Whatever community you're in, beekeeping, skateboarding, surfing, it doesn't matter. I mean, there's always that segment that's going to say, I want to see the study. And usually those are the ones that are at the hierarchy, near the top of the ladder, that control what can move up and what can't.
Well,
yeah, he was a president of that club. He shut me down.
Well, for me, and I'm kind of like what Clark's just said there. My field testing works for me, right?
Exactly.
I understand there's a need for science, right? There's a need for testing, but everything starts somewhere. And what I find is that there's y'all push my buttons on this thing. And I'm trying to not get on this mile-high soapbox that I really want to stand on right now. But screw it, it's my show. So the hypocrisy that is in beekeeping, where people are so critical of, oh, I gotta have the science, it's gotta be tested, or it's illegal, but I'm gonna shoot my boxes with more than the legal dose of oxalic acid because that's what I'm gonna do.
Because that's what your eyes and ears
side, but not okay on the other, and that's where I have my biggest hang up, right?
People
so
draw the line right before they believe their eyes and ears, and that's foolish. It's foolish. Ian talks about innovation all the time. Well, yeah, that's a good thing, except if you don't have the audience for it, or people that will tip their toe in the pool to try it, it's going to go nowhere.
Yeah, it's only innovative if certain people say it's innovative.
Correct.
That's at least in the YouTube environment.
I was talking about the hierarchy, that stepping up the ladder. There's people that will put the brakes on it, and to their advantage, maybe.
Well, I mean, it's just like the oxalic acid vapor treatment. It's 1 gram here in the States. Well, 10 years ago, we already knew what the Europeans, and that's another thing. Oh, if it isn't discovered in the United States, it can't be any good. Well, the Europeans figured out about oxalic acid before we ever did. And the fact that
Ian just fell asleep.
Oh, no.
He had enough cracking.
And I think he dropped his glass. But 10 years ago, we already knew that it took 2.25 grams per brood box to be effective. So that's science. It's already been discovered 10 years ago. But here in the United States, they can't get out of their act. We got to prove it to ourselves before we can allow that to happen. And it just don't make sense. It just
well, the whole thing is a balance. There's definitely a lot of value in the science. There's a lot of value in the anecdote. There's a lot of value in the field trials. However, boy, oh boy, you do a bunch of field trials and say, oh, goody, this worked. Guess what? Correlation doesn't prove causality. Do it again. That's what Ian said earlier. He said, can I reproduce this? Mm-hmm. Right? And we don't know. Right? So we've learned the effect Nicolas Cage has on people drowning in swimming pools. And is that science, or is that correlation that doesn't prove causality?
And that goes with other science things. So Randy Oliver, I've heard him say it, you have your exploratory studies, and those studies need to be repeated.
Yeah.
And if the same conclusion isn't drawn twice, so that's right. You have good science, right?
You hit the nail on the head. I think that is one of the most important parts of this whole thing. Is if you can't reproduce it, it's nothing. All right.
Yeah,
you got to reproduce that.
Hey, Todd. Yeah. Send me your address. I'm Maccabees at Maccabees.com. Send me a text of your address.
Yes, sir.
I need your help with my little testing.
Oh, okay.
Speaking of science, we all got sidetracked. We were supposed to be drilling down on Charlie, right?
Try to crack Charlie with or the secret sauce.
Charlie,
you wouldn't want to test
all
it.
I'm going to say is
hives is all I'm saying.
That Tom Ayers talked to some Mr. Peck and some other science folks down there.
Connor.
And they were very interested in what he was saying. And I think, didn't they ask you, Tom, to write a thesis or something another?
Yeah, he wanted me to show him all my stats I got so far on it, and exactly what my test is. And
well, what I kind of got out of this is Tom took an idea of his own and thought about fixing the problem in a different way. And
right,
these science folks were like, we never thought about it that way before. And they're really interested in his, here's a practical beekeeper that came up with an idea that has a possibility of working quite well. And he's trying to give it to the science people to, okay, take my idea and run with it and see if it doesn't work.
right. Let them do field studies and get a report going.
Mm-hmm. That's where a lot of value comes in the grassroots up, research comes for, because with scientists, they're like, all right, well, think the best way to put, so I don't know if any of you guys know Jeremy Felding. His YouTube channel is a mechanical engineer, really smart. And his analogy is you can go to somebody and you can say, design me a better lawnmower, right? And they'll design you a better lawnmower. You can go to somebody and you say, design me that'll take a 1/4 acre of grass and make it shorter, right? And you just opened up the box. And with the grassroots up research, a lot of beekeepers have really different views, you know what I mean? And so you're not going to just get the new lawnmower, you're going to get the different views.
Well, and a good point there, Tom, too, is design me a better lawnmower. Well, define better. Some people think cheaper is better. Okay, design me a cheaper lawnmower. Well, that's easy. Just tell China to build it to be cheaper. It'll be a piece of crap, but it'll cut the lawn one time. But it's a better lawnmower because it's cheaper. Well, what's a better lawnmower, right? Is it a lawnmower like our grandfathers used and we're still using because they last 100 years? Is that a better lawnmower? It's all subjective.
My cows were really good lawnmowers. True story. Really good lawnmowers until they got to my basswood trees. No longer were they good lawnmowers.
Well, it would be like, we've had sickle bar mowers for years, and Ian will understand this really good. And now they developed a mowing machine actually for over in England where it's always wet. Sickle bar mowers would choke up. So they made the disc binds where they're basically like small little rotary mowers in a line. Yeah. And it did better because it could get through the wet grass and it didn't choke up. Well, now that's what I had. We went from a hay bind. It was a combination mower conditioner with a sickle cutting apparatus on the front of it. Now we've got the same principle, only with a different style of knife cutting, which you can go 3 times faster. You don't have any choking up in the grass, even whether it's wet or dry. And we're doing the same thing, but only a much more efficient and better way of doing it. And it's, that's what it takes to come up with different ideas.
Hey,
what I found out that there weren't many scientists studying the reproductivity of a mite and what it takes for a mite to reproduce.
All right,
Tom,
so
can you send your
not
email
how they reproduce, but what makes them capable to reproduce.
Tom, shoot me your email address again.
It's Maccabees@maccabees.com.
Okay.
It's email@emailaddress.com.
Me@me.com.
I made that one because it's really easy.
But so I mean, as far as like the science, I understand we need data, right? We do need data. We need to see things, but do we need it to the point that we have to wait for the science before we test it? And it just kind of seems that on some things, it's got to be approved, and on some things it doesn't have to be approved, and there's just not a standard, right? And that's everybody, right? So you could say, well, I need scientific data, but then we buy Honeybee Healthy and Brood Booster and all this stuff, and we put it in there, and there is no data for any of those products that everybody buys and uses. But that's okay.
Yeah, so that's what I was mentioning earlier. When it depends on what you're calling somebody. Is it a medication or is it a supplement? Right? Those are the things that matter when it comes to the regulatory.
Well, I mean, in recent times, there's been a product called a supplement, and the stink on the drama that ensued about a supplemental product that happens to drop some mites because it's got thymol in it. It was just like Armageddon in the YouTube community. So it's just it's very selective.
Always going to be naysayers. Whatever.
Yeah. So
my question to that was the folks that were doing the hollering about it. Who deputized them as the bee police?
They did.
Well, it doesn't matter.
They deputized themselves.
And they've got their own agenda, so you can't let that deter you. You just got to move forward. You can't let any of that deter you.
I think the agenda was more or less
they're always going to be there.
They weren't making money.
It's a standard. It's a universal standard. It always is going to be. There's going to be naysayers for some reason or another. There's no way around that. It's always going to happen. So
I guess bottom line, the product's going to speak for itself, Bob?
Yep.
Right.
Exactly.
That's all there is to it. Yeah. So I guess time will tell. Hey, good news. I've been hearing that in Canada, anyways, we might be getting that extended oxalic acid release approval. So we might be able to use this stuff legally up here.
Nice.
So that's awesome.
Yeah, in spring. So, I hope in spring. So that's coming right smartly here. That's good.
I almost bought a new pair of long johns for Manitoba today.
He's all concerned about, I don't have any warm clothes.
Hey, I went to Tractor Supply and they had the old-fashioned, like the red long john with the flap in the back and all that. And I was like, I should get these just as a gag gift. Literally come off the plane wearing this long john with the flap in the back. Like I'm all with the hat with the ears on it, right? Like Cousin Eddie there, ready to go.
So with that extended release OA in Canada, do they define what the medium has to be? Like, does it have to be a blue shop towel? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think it's the sponge. I'm pretty sure it's a sponge, either the sponge or the shop towel. Okay. I forget which way they went. I'm pretty sure it's a sponge, but it's based solely on Randy Oliver's work there.
Is that going to be preloaded?
No, it's a good question. It's boy, now I'm getting out of my realm. It's something to do with using the existing label and just what's the word for it?
Delivery method.
Yeah, just altering the delivery method. Yeah.
Yeah, I was reading in the ABJ with Randy wrote in there that, and I didn't really read the articles. Didn't have time. Something about where they finally got approval from the EPA here in the States about.
I believe it. They ended up getting shot down in the end on that. I think.
I'm not sure.
It all comes down to the, it's only approved for this amount, and that's it. And Randy's clearly shows that it's actually a bigger amount, but it's actually in smaller increments. You know what I mean? But it's
our Canadian Hunting Council is quite concerned because there's a lot of beekeepers across Canada that I'm not being too open about it, but there's beekeepers using this product and using it very effectively. And it was time for the regulatory system to get ahead, catch up to the beekeepers' use. Like, what are you going to find, thousands of beekeepers across Western Canada? Or are you going to catch up with the label and the product? It's just a change of label, right? So, I'm glad to see it progressing like that.
In the U.S. with our regulations, so I worked for the federal government for 7 years, and with our regulation system, right, you have to have notice for proposed rule change and like all this stuff in line, and a lot of agencies. So I worked for the Federal Railroad Administration, and we had, this is off topic, but it's related. So workers were not doing something, it was against the regulation, but it was across the entire railroad industry. And so the agency used discretion against it rather than changing the rule, because it was so much work to change the rule that it was just easier to just ignore it. That's how our regulation system works, because it's so hard to change things.
Jeez.
Hey, Ian, I got a quick question. When you're feeding syrup in the early spring and it's still frozen, or you're still getting freezing temperatures and everything, how soon is too soon to feed liquid? Last year, the problem, I put fondant on, but the fondant dries up and turns rock hard, and I just don't feel they're getting much use out of that. And I was thinking last year, I sent you a video, you'd respond to it, but I had two of my largest colonies starve out in the beginning of the spring. They just were all brood, 100% brood. But I was thinking about starting feed this year a little bit earlier, 2-3 weeks earlier than I would normally do, to make sure that they're coming in stronger a bit, I guess. But
so what temperatures would that be?
Freezing overnight, and then probably warming up in the mid-30s during the day.
Yeah. I like to, I think people get the wrong impression in what I do. They think I'm feeding when it's like minus, 10 or -5 even. Feeding in the snow, and you'll see pails in my colonies and in the snow and such. And then one year I did that, and I got a lot of snow on top. It wasn't that I was feeding in the snow; it's just I was feeding and it snowed. So generally, I'll start feeding for a reason, for one thing, and that is if they're starving. Starve, or you're going to feed them. So you put a bucket up on top, and if they'll take the feed, they'll keep themselves going, or to stimulate them, and that's typically when we put them out of the shed. And we're seeing flight weather, right? And they're going and collecting food, bringing it back. So they're active. They're up and flying around. They're active like that. So what's too cold? I'm not sure if it's too cold. Is when they quit taking it. And that's generally when they cluster up and they, form that tight cluster. So what's that, around freezing or such? But I haven't seen any negative aspects to feeding when it's too cold. A lot of people will talk about negative aspects, and I haven't seen anything like that.
See, that's what I've heard rumors of, is like they're talking about too much moisture in the colonies and all this. But the problem we have is in early spring is the maple will start to pop, and they'll get, all this pollen rolling in, but they have no nectar. And so we have this where they're just flying like crazy. They've got pollen coming in, and then they'll starve to death because there's no sugar.
Yeah, so you got to give them food. If they don't have food, you got to give it to them. And they rear brood a lot better when they have fresh food coming in. They'll be sitting on honey, and they'll just kind of sit there and not really do a lot. They need that nest to be wet, right? They need that nest to have that fresh feed coming in. Otherwise, they won't brood. So if they can take it, give it to them if they can take it.
That's why I mentioned earlier that I'm going to try to start about 3 weeks before the maples start blooming, just so they have the food when that hits.
Yeah, we're a little bit colder than you guys. Not a ton, but we're a little bit colder than you guys. But like I said, I was just, in the past, I usually wait till like probably the second week of March. And this year I'm thinking like maybe the third week of February. And then the other thing I did different this year is I put a feeder shim on, and I'm thinking about doing the bag system inside that feeder shim.
The best thing you can do is test it out to see if it's going to work. Like, you're going to be feeding for a reason. So when you're feeding for the reason, then just see if there's a response. And if you see if there's a negative response, then back the hell away from that plan, right? Maybe you have an area that's maybe a little more humid or wetter, and maybe you're going to see a negative consequence to that. I'm not sure what it would be, but test it out, because you got to figure that out for your own colonies.
Yeah, I was going to start with just putting like a half gallon in a Ziploc baggie on top of the feeder shim, and just see, or in the feeder shim, and just see if they're taking it and how they're taking it. But
if they're getting pollen, that's if they're bringing in pollen, then you should be giving them some sugar just to help them out.
Yeah, the last few years we've had such a warm winter that the maple trees have been popping early. Usually it's like the second week of March or something. Last year, I think it was like the last week of February, we had maple trees popping. So that's very unusual. But we had a 60-degree Christmas Day this year. I don't think I can ever remember having such a warm Christmas.
If you start feeding early like that, you got to be careful. That's another reason why I have pails on the spring. if you get that nest just chugging along, feeding sugar is probably one of the easiest things we can do as beekeepers to help them along. We focus on protein and we put patties, we put all this energy in putting patties, but we forget about the sugar they need. So when I'm building these springtime nests and I have 2 or 3 frames open brood going and I have this winter storm coming at me, I make sure there's a pail of syrup up on top because those bees need that energy to be able to keep that nest going. And they'll take that syrup even if they're under 2 feet of snow. You've seen it 2 years ago, I think it was in my video, like the colonies are under snow, the pail up on top, and they're feeding the sugar. They're pulling it down. If it get down to -10, they're not going to take it, of course, but it's getting up warmer through the day. They break cluster, go up, take the syrup, bring it down, feed the brood, keep things going. So it's, they're going to take it, they're going to use it. They're going to have to get rid of the moisture, I guess, and everything, but it's you just got to be able to manage that if there's any consequence behind that. Yeah, so that's all I can say about that.
Hey,
but in the fall, if we're talking the fall, I have a rule in the fall that I have to have my colonies fed up by October. I have to have the majority of my feed in there fed and cured. That's really important. This is 2 different subjects. In the spring, it's more stimulative, it's more hand to mouth. It's not storage. In the fall, we're talking about cured food. And I need that done by October because sometimes we have cold Octobers and I can't get my feed in to the colonies when it's cold in the fall and they can't cure it properly. And if you don't have cured feed going into winter, that can be absolutely devastating. I'll notice in the sheds, I'll have colonies with feed dripping out the front because it's starting to take on moisture, starting to ferment, starting to spoil, right? It's not good, and it's not good for the bees to eat uncured feed as winter feed. So I have a rule in the fall, October 1st. You'll see I still have my pails on, but I'm just topping them up, just the top 5 or 10%. The majority of those colonies are fed right up in the fall. Yeah, 2 different things.
So if you have lower nosema counts coming out of the shed since you started using the Apis biologics and whatnot?
I would say, I'm not going to say the Apis dropped the spore counts, but I'm going to say that I was doing, these are farmer trials. And I think you guys can appreciate that. Mm-hmm. I was testing between fumagillin and I was having trouble with a lot of variability because there was almost like a bounce back from feeding the fumagillin. I was getting very frustrated with that. And I found when I started feeding protein patties, which included the supplements I put in there also, but when I started feeding the protein, I found more consistent management. That the bees are able to manage the nosema a lot more consistently, and the bees were more resilient. So I quit, and I think what was happening was the fumagillin is an antibiotic, and I think it was killing their guts, killing the nosema, killing the guts, being reinfected by a comb or whatever, and then the nosema just had a heyday, and the bounce back was almost twofold from when it first started. I just had a lot of trouble with that. So I cut that out and I started feeding protein, and I've had tremendous success until last spring. Last spring, my sickness, I'm not sure what happened, but something happened and I wasn't able to, or the bees weren't able to control that nosema infection, and the nosema just overtook everything. And by the time I did treat to kill the nosema and allow the bees to regain themselves, it was too late in the season. I could hardly gain myself. So I'll say that with that caveat because last year was my exception to that rule. Yeah.
Gotcha. So less about syrup, more about protein.
Well, night, everyone.
Purely protein. Yeah. With the nosema, it was a protein.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to tell him I sent that email.
All right,
and I'm not the only beekeeper that talks about that either. A lot of beekeepers, especially some of the bigger guys in the south, they'll talk about how protein feeding will help with the nosema to a certain extent, though. All right. And we have to recognize when colonies get sick, we need to be able to treat the sickness with medications.
Well, tomorrow's Tuesday. Our regular stream will be over on Lee's channel tomorrow night on Kodiak Farms Bees. So if you are interested in joining us tomorrow night over there, we'll be there at 8 o'clock, and we've been going for, 2 hours and 16 minutes or so. So I'm going to go ahead and shut the stream off for tonight, and I appreciate everybody for coming and hanging out with us for a while tonight and enduring the chat. And
that was a good live tonight, Bob. Really great conversations. Thanks for having it.
Yeah.
You know,
and I'll have mine. I'll be back on this coming Friday too at 8 p.m. Standard Time.
I gotta say, as the new guy here, these 2 hours really fly by here. It feels like it's been half an hour.
Well, when you're part of it, right? Sometimes those 2 hours feel like 10 hours. Just depends on the night.
Depends on the subject and everything and how.
When you get in here and everyone's like, well, it's winter and our bees aren't doing anything, and then all of a sudden there's silence in between, and then you got to listen to Bob fill the blanks, and then it's just it takes a long time. But for the most part, we try to keep it full, keep it rolling.
And there's been a lot of new folks that seem to be coming in. I don't know who West Honey is and Square Bee Farms.
Well, if you notice at the top, this is actually being streamed to 4 channels right now.
Yeah, it's streaming through my channel and
mine too.
So Todd and
maybe 3 or 4 people watching from my channel.
That's probably Sourwoods, right? S there.
Well, it actually pops up. Charlie's pops up before yours. When I pull up mine on YouTube.
That's because I have you blocked on my YouTube channel. No, I'm just kidding.
There's a reason for everything, Robert.
No, I don't know. It just depends on who you interact with the most, I think, is how that works. But I don't have you blocked. I don't know why I did that.
Yeah, like I say, but go with the rest of these folks, Bob. That you have it.
God.
You and Lee have it each Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Central Eastern Standard. It's Kodiak Farms or Walker Bee Ranch on Tuesdays. Thursdays could be anybody.
Open.
And then Friday nights is Solomon Charlie's Bee Farm.
He's frozen right there.
We stream a lot.
We stream a lot.
Oh, screen capture Ian. That was a great
screen.
All right. Well,
that's a bummer.
Yeah, we do this several times a week. If you're new, we appreciate you coming. And hey, we put a link up in the top of the chat on YouTube, at least on whoever's streaming it. So if it's mine, it'd be in mine, where you can come join us if you want to come in.
Everybody's invited, even on mine.
So we have a few basic rules, though. If you come in, talk. It is a chat. And, take turns. And
don't watch TV while you're trying to participate in the chat.
Yeah, no TV, like no video games, no carnivals.
If you're going to be noisy, or if it's in a noisy place, mute yourself until you need, you
no building frames while you get your mic open.
Or tanks or anything like that.
All right, guys. Well, we're going to call it for this evening. I appreciate you guys, and we'll see you on the next stream. Thanks.
Stay in here.
Good night, everyone.